Hey everyone, this is Jacob and I'm here to give a quick overview of the Ultimate Screenshot tool. So let's get right into it. The screenshot display demo is a good place to get a good idea of some of the features. So as you can see, I can hit take a screenshot. The screenshot appears in this kind of Polaroid style preview window. I can take more, and let's say I really like this one. I can hit upload, and that uploads the image to Imgur. As you can see, here's the link, and I can hit share, and that'll open. Right now I've got it set to open a Gmail email, well, open whatever email, and that's got the link and some default text and subject that I put in there, or I share to Twitter. On iOS and Android, the share button would open a share sheet instead, and you wouldn't have to upload the image first. You could just share the file directly. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, and some other features. So you can also take a screenshot here. Take a look at that. One of the big features is that you can take all screenshots, which takes screenshots in multiple resolutions. So as you can see, we've got this resolution list here. And these are all the necessary resolutions for having an app. So if I hit take all screenshots, it's gonna go through all those and take the screenshots we need. And I've actually been taking a lot of screenshots recently, so hopefully my folders aren't a mess. But nope, looks great. So you can see all their screenshots ended up in a nice organized folder, and you can set that up based on what you name them. So I separated them into iOS and Android folders and then gave them fairly generic names. But so there's the iOS and Android folder, the name, and then the resolution it was taken at. So here's the iPad, I believe, and that's 2048 by 2732. So that's right. And then here's the iPhone 8 Plus, which is 1080 by 1920. And if I open the iPad again, as you can see, the UI has adjusted to the different sizes, and everything looks great. One more thing you can do is if you want to take all your screenshots at once, you can take a screenshot series, and that can go through multiple screens. I actually demonstrated that in another video, but I can go ahead and show it here too. So what that's going to do is it's going to take all the screenshots of the initial screen, which we saw earlier, and then it's also going to go and go through some of the other screens in the demo and take screenshots of those. So there's the demo overview, and this is the asset feature screen, and it took all those screenshots. So now again, they'll be in the folder. They'll keep the same name across all the resolutions, and we can see those, and that all looks great. So yeah, so that's kind of an overview of the demo and going through a few of the features. We can also kind of get down into the menus. One thing before we do that, there's also a lot of share options here. As you saw, there's the in-game uploading, but also if you want to pick which platform to share to, or create your own custom stuff, You can share to whatever URL. You can do that here. So now let's kind of walk through the setup of the tool. Well, there isn't really any setup, but how you can customize it or do whatever you want with it. So I already have these resolutions, but it's super easy to add another one and remove them. Let's actually add a landscape one so we can demonstrate another feature, which is these buttons here. So active means you want to take screenshots of it. So you can, there's portrait buttons for portrait, landscape, all, none. If you double click, you can switch to that resolution, and that's super easy and convenient for testing and things like that. Let's just go back to standalone for now. So that's great. Here's the screenshot series settings that we saw earlier with this button. So it's set up to capture the initial screen, which is this one, and then go into the demo overview, take a photo, go back, asset features, take a photo, go back. If you have animations or whatever, you can set this delay to wait for those animations to occur before you take your screenshots. There's also these extra capture lists and do not capture lists, which were renamed from the temporarily enabled and disabled objects. And what that's going to do is it could add extra things that'll just appear during your screenshots, like logos, debug information, something like that. So sometimes I'll have this information displayed during screenshots, which, you know, it tells me what the version is, what time the screenshot was taken, project name, stuff like that. So if I wanted that to appear just during screenshots, what I would do is I would just add it to this list. So that's the debug text canvas. And just like that, whenever I took a screenshot, that text is going to appear just in the screenshot. And that debug text, that's actually a feature of the tool and something you can customize as well. So you can put some custom text in there. You can set a date format. You can set the project name, what scene you're in. I've got the version, build, date, stuff like that. So, alright, that's all pretty easy to use. Disabled, so similar but the opposite. If there's something that you want to display in your game but not in your screenshots. The example that's in the demos are these grid lines. So if I want to use these grid lines to line something up and then take a screenshot, the grid lines will automatically be disabled when that screenshot is taken. So yeah, it's pretty handy. I really like using it. And finally, timing. Again, sometimes it's all about capturing that perfect moment. And if things are going by too fast, there's just a handy way to slow things down with this timescale override, or speed things up if you need to do that. Normally, when you're taking all the screenshots by going through all these resolutions, it stops time to make sure that you get the exact same shot for all your resolutions. If you want to disable that for whatever reason, you can uncheck this. If you want to set a delay before you take your screenshots for some reason, like have a countdown or something, you can set a delay here. These buttons you already saw. Take a screenshot, take game view, screenshot series, view last screenshot, just opens the last one that was taken, and the folder of the screenshot folder. Yeah, you can also take scene view screenshots. So that might have been pretty quick, but so you can set up your scene view to be whatever you want, and you can take a screenshot of that, and that just looks exactly same size and shape and everything. Looks exactly like the scene view without the gizmos. So yeah, that's the capture settings. Save settings. Choose where you want to save these screenshots to. I recommend, as it says here, using a tilde at the end of your folder name. That'll make the folder ignored by Unity, which saves you a lot of time when you're switching builds, because Unity doesn't try and re-import all those photos. Here's just the save settings for where you want to save the images when you have standalone builds. So these will put the screenshot folder right next to the game directory. On mobile, you have a few more settings. There's save to gallery, which saves so the user can see it, and there's persist locally, which will persist it so you have access to it, but it doesn't really give the user access. So if you wanted both, you could have both. Set that up how you like. Web settings, you could open the images in a new tab, download them, or persist them locally so that you can use them later. Here's our file name settings. So I've got just a custom prefix and then this counter, which is incremented every time you take a shot. And there's also some other handy things. You could just have the project name in the counter. You could use the camera name. You could use a date in some format you'd like. The resolution you could put in the screenshot name. That's all there. You can choose PNG or JPEG. And the JPEG, you've got your quality settings. PNG, you can set allow transparency, and there's some information about that. Share, I kind of went over briefly earlier. It automatically updates, but if you wanted to choose a different file, you can. URL to share, so you could share, exactly the Imgur URL, or if you wanted to customize it somehow. I've got this kind of slick setup that I talked about in the share video. If you want to learn more about that, you could use the post URL, which is, so when you upload it to Imgur, you could share the post instead of just the image, or use last media URL. Then there's a lot of handy buttons here. If it's too many handy buttons, you can quickly hide them, whatever ones you don't plan on using, so that you make your UI a lot simpler. And you can even upload to, share to custom URLs that you want to make. So that's all the share settings, and then all the regular settings. So render texture is a different capture mode. It's a bit more complicated, but has a little bit more control. Basically, what that does is it goes through all the cameras in your list, takes the render textures from them, and then combines them into a single texture before saving. So yeah, that's a bit more customizable if you need it. One thing to say about that is that overlay UI does not appear on any camera, so that wouldn't appear in a render texture normally. The way to get around that is with this UI camera, and what that does is during screenshots, if you have this switch render mode enabled, it will put all your overlay canvases onto this UI camera, which is a part of the tool, just before the screenshot takes place, to make sure those all appear properly. And the UI camera is put on the very top. It's the highest possible depth. and it's deactivated normally, so it doesn't cause any extra rendering. Um, but yeah, you can also override that behavior, use your own camera, set your own plane distance, all those things. Very customizable, but it's definitely built so that it works right out of the box. Background camera, you could set your own background, so maybe you want transparent backgrounds to highlight some game objects. You can do that here. Another thing you can do is cutout, so if you just want a certain portion of the screen, so let's say I just want this little bottom half, so I can highlight that and take a screenshot and have the cutout just that portion of the screen. So yeah, that's a super cool feature. You know, maybe you just want to highlight some portion of your game, or you want to exclude some things. So that's a great way to do it. Hotkeys. So you know, when you want to capture that perfect moment, maybe you don't want to be hitting buttons in here or in game. Um, you can assign hotkeys. So by default, that's F to take a single screenshot of the game as you see it. But you could also, if you want to take screenshots on all the resolutions, you can use R. And there's a hotkey to enable and disable that cutout preview that you saw just a second ago. Be careful with using the same hotkeys as the editor uses. I know there's a potential issue with V because it causes vertex snapping, and I heard that was messing with some screenshots, so I switched to the hotkey. You can read all about them if you click that button, which opens the link. There's also audio sounds whenever you take a screenshot. That's from an audio source that's built into the tool. There's several different actual clips that you could use that are included with the asset. If you don't want to use it, you could get rid of this audio source, or you could choose to only have it play in editor, only have it to play in game, whatever you'd like. Some resolution settings. Talked a little bit about having a delay before all your screenshots. If you want to have a delay between certain screenshots, um, like let's say between iOS and Android, you could have, or actually, you'd want to do it here because this delay is before the screenshot in this row. One use case I could see for that is if you have an animation that occurs when you rotate from portrait to landscape, and you want to wait for that animation to occur before you take all your screenshots. You can do that. It's a pretty specific use case. I don't have it on by default. Adjust scale, so that's if you want to see these scale values, you can always get rid of that and give yourself a bit more space. But that's on in case you want to, scale some of these, take much bigger versions of these shots and then scale them down so you can have less aliasing or something like that. Share resolutions between platforms. Basically, that's, do you want to have your resolutions the same across all platforms? So right now that's checked, so if I switched to an Android build right now, I'd have all the same resolutions. But if your iOS or Android builds are different and you don't want to accidentally take iOS photos in the Android version or vice versa, you can uncheck that, and then your iOS resolutions would only appear in your iOS builds and uh, vice versa. So that depends on your settings. You saw the scene view shots earlier. They used the camera resolution of the scene view, so they took exactly the size shot. If you wanted to use the game view resolution or another resolution, you can set that here. And finally, don't destroy and load. By default, the tool is don't destroy and load. This is grayed out because, once you set don't destroy and load, it's not really easy to uncheck it. You can just delete the screenshot if you wanted, but this wouldn't be grayed out when the editor isn't playing. So actually, I can just show that. So yeah, you can toggle that. Max instances, so that has to do with if preventing extra screenshot tools from being built, too many tools. So for example, if this was a multi-scene demo, we'd have this screenshot tool in the first scene. It's don't destroy and load. We switch to another scene, it would get preserved. If we switch back to this current scene, the scene contains within it a screenshot tool, and we're also bringing a screenshot tool that was preserved from this scene. So each time we go through that cycle, we're creating more and more screenshot tools, which is an issue. So to avoid that, you can set the max instances. And what this will do, though, is that whenever a new screenshot tool is trying to be created, like when we come back to the scene, if we already have our max instances of screenshot tools, it just destroys the new thing. So in the case mentioned earlier, we would just keep that original screenshot tool through our entire use of the app, which is probably what you want. Auto update cameras. So that's how to find the cameras in the next scene that correspond to the previous cameras. So like your background camera. So that the screenshot tool automatically connects and updates everything properly. And that can be by name, so you could keep your camera names consistent throughout your scenes. So if the camera is called main camera in this scene and main camera in the next scene, it'll know that those are the same cameras and update the screenshot tool accordingly. You could also do that by tag instead of name. That's a personal preference, but you will have to make sure that name or tag is unique and use the proper one if you want to do that auto updating. Finally, support. If you want to contact me, you can reach me email, Twitter. There's also Discord and a Reddit. Click these buttons and they will handily open desired platform. Upload editor error log, so that's if there is an error that occurs within the program or some other issue, then this button will be enabled. It's not enabled until there actually is an error. And what that'll do is it'll take the error and upload it, and then it'll include the link in the email or the Twitter connections. And that's just so that I can get a few more details about the error. That's completely optional if you want to choose to upload those editor error logs or not. Hopefully you don't need to. So finally, there's a rate, donate, and other assets button. If you're happy with the asset, definitely give it a heart and some 5 stars. I think it's great. I hope you like it too. Other assets, I'm working on a GIF tool, and there will be a bundle with the screenshot tool coming out to use some of the same features like sharing and all those things. So yeah, I definitely think this is a wonderful asset, and I expect it to save me a lot of time, and so I recommend it, and I hope you'll check it out.